You're listening to another great podcast in the MyMac Podcasting Network.
News, views, security stories, technology, and all sorts of other related chit-chat that catches our attention. Welcome to the Essential Apple Podcast.
Hello everybody, welcome to this week's edition. And this week we're going to have a special edition on desktop publishing on a budget for amateurs. So after we've had a quick look at the news, we will take a break for Nemo, and then we will be talking about desktop publishing on the Macintosh on a budget for amateurs. And joining me for that, we have Suffolk Pete. Hello, Pete.
Hi there.
And Nick Spligosh Riley.
Hello again, Simon.
Hello again. So, before we move on to the news, I will just tell everybody, Nick, as you've heard on this show before, probably publishes a church magazine newsletter, and Pete publishes a village newsletter and also a school newsletter, and has in the past worked on various charity type newsletters. So, and I, of course, am a professional in the print industry. So between us, I think we should be able to cover quite a lot of ground. But before that, we're going to take a look at the news. And of course, the first story is Catalina. Catalina kind of crept onto the scene by night like a cat, slinking through the cat flap, because there was no announcement, no trumpeting. It just kind of appeared. What I know, I don't think either of you boys are going to upgrade to Catalina just yet, are you?
No.
For a variety of reasons, which we might just talk about in a moment. I, of course, have been on Catalina since the first public beta, so it's all rather old hat to me. And in fact, yesterday the Catalina 15.1 first beta arrived. So, I'm ahead of you all again. Sorry. There we are.
Living in the future.
Living in the future, out on the bleeding edge. And there's been quite a lot of hoo-ha this week from people complaining that Catalina has got bugs in it. Well, duh. Sorry, people. That's what a 0.0 release tends to be like. Beta or no beta, bugs get through.
I think we've come to expect Apple to be... normally their final releases are pretty good, aren't they? So
yeah.
they tend to, on the whole, not break that many things. And perhaps people are just observing that a few more things are broken than they expected this time.
Well, yeah,
I don't know whether that's true. I'm just, positing that it might be.
I think there are two things. One, there's a massive change in the, in the OS in itself, in that they've made a whole load of changes. Also, of course, they've dropped 32-bit support. Now, if you didn't know it was going to drop 32-bit support, where have you been for the last 2.5 years? I'm sorry. But, since what? High Sierra, you've had things popping up when you launch 32-bit apps going, this will no longer be supported. I think in High Sierra it said this needs to be updated. In Mojave, it said this will no longer be supported and will no longer work after this, iteration of the OS. And this time, there is no 32-bit support, and if you've got 32-bit apps, they won't work. So I don't think anybody can really have any excuse for that.
Oh, come on, Simon. No one reads pop-ups. It's a little bit like terms and conditions.
Yeah, go away. But I think where some people probably have been caught out is a lot of people don't tend to think about things which might have 32-bit components.
Yeah.
So, for example, plugins, a lot of plugins for, various applications may be quite old and maybe 32-bit and suddenly will stop working. The other one, which is usually a bit of a trap for the unwary, is, of course, devices, peripherals. We all know that peripheral makers are notoriously lax about fixing their drivers or their supporting software. So, it's printers and scanners are always vulnerable when an OS updates to getting broken.
Yeah.
I think my advice, the advice of everybody usually is, check carefully into what might and might not work. Make sure you have a backup, proper backup, a clone or a time machine or whatever before you launch into updating your system. And of course, if we're talking about production systems which you rely on, don't bloody update yet. It's as simple as that. I
also think with the way that modern printers are marketed, unless you go for a particularly sophisticated printer, it's not like it's terribly expensive to replace it, is it?
No. Well,
it's almost cheaper to replace it than buy a new set of ink.
It is often, and I'm pretty sure that device manufacturers, to some extent, that's why they're so lax about updating their drivers. It's like, well, sod it, just buy another one. We don't want to update the software.
I think my last printer, which I'm still using, and I still use it to print the masters for the magazine, I think was 40 quid, £39, something.
Yeah,
it was cheap.
I mean, you can buy now. I mean, for years they were quite expensive, but you can buy a reasonable A4 black and white laser printer for sort of around £100, I think, possibly less. I mean, the biggest expense with that is, yes, when you want toner, you're going to probably have to lay out 50, 60, 70 pounds. However, you get tens of thousands of sheets out of those. And also, the other thing is, if you don't use your laser printer for 6 months, when you turn it on, it will still work. It will still print. And I think
perhaps we'll talk about it in the next section. But I mean, my printer uses instant ink,
right?
So perhaps we'll leave that for
But you know what I mean? A lot of inkjets do not like not being used. In fact, I've given away my last 2 printers on the grounds that I hadn't used them in a year, and I gave them away on the sort of understanding they work as scanners. They may or may not continue to work as printers.
Heads get clogged up with ink, don't they? And then that's it, really. It's
like, you can take them. You can risk putting ink in them and see what happens, but they definitely work as scanners. But there you go. So that's about it really for Catalina. I haven't really come across many bugs at all, right from the start. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, go on.
I have one thing to say. If you've got some iOS devices which have gone to iOS 13 and you use Apple Notes quite a lot, and you like to sync between your Mac and the iOS devices, they insist on the Mac being upgraded to Catalina as well for that to happen. Which I find slightly annoying.
Yes, I can imagine so. The iCloud, if there's any bug, well, not so much bugs, but if there are things in it that have annoyed me, they've nearly all come down to iCloud. But yes, I think I might have heard that, Pete, but obviously it's not something I've experienced because I went straight onto Catalina and iOS 13 as soon as the betas broke ground.
Well, actually, Apple, pointed that out to me when I upgraded. I can't remember, there was a pop-up in an Apple app. Having said that, I've just launched Notes on my iMac, which isn't running Catalina, and the notes I made for this show in Apple Notes on my iPad this morning, which is running iOS 13, have appeared here. So
it might be that they decided not
to implement that just yet.
Either not to implement it, or there was a problem with it, which made them say, "Watch out, this doesn't work," and now they've fixed it. I couldn't really say.
Yeah, odd. Okay.
Then again, they made some changes. There were some changes in the betas at one point. There were some changes implemented, which were then pulled before the final release.
Right.
Because they were not considered, stable enough for public release.
Yeah, weren't they deleting stuff, which was
early on. There was some things which could cause you to lose stuff. Actually, early on, the biggest problem was it filling up your iCloud by constantly duplicating your documents folder.
Oh yes, I remember you saying that.
Yeah.
Which got rather annoying. They seem to have fixed that. Obviously, they did. They were going to have folder sharing, like in Dropbox, where you could, share something from your files to other people with a link. But they pulled that because that's not apparently ready for prime time. So.
Yeah, that's really annoying.
It is actually, yes.
Yeah.
But it apparently will be back in the spring. So you just have to hold on for that, really. What else? What else has gone on? This one's a bit of a follow-up. The Independent had an article saying Apple are to release augmented reality glasses, allowing people to put iPhone messages on their face soon.
Why?
Well, yeah, I think they mean in their eyes.
Okay.
Not to actually display messages on their face.
To their face.
Yeah, there's a very...
Some other people can read them.
Well, why? Yeah, exactly. I think
Pops
they
up
mean
on your forehead.
you can put the glasses on your face and then read the messages in your glasses.
Okay.
This is basically it's predicated on Ming Chi Kuo. I can't really steal it, but Carl Madden on the Mac and Forth show has got a brilliant little sound clip that he plays now whenever he's going to do a Ming Chi Kuo comment, and it goes Ming Chi Kuo, Ruma, Wing. It's brilliant, like Chinese marching song.
I like that too.
It's brilliant. Anyway, I'd steal it if I could get away with it, but I can't.
I think we just did.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's predicated on what, Ming Chi Kuo's spoutings. But what caught my eye about it more than anything else, after the discussion we had last week, was the fact that he's talking about it with third parties.
Yeah.
Now, you could interpret that one of two ways. That is that Apple are going to sell the technology to third parties to make AR glasses that work with iOS in a sort of made for iOS type program. Or you could interpret it the other way, as we were talking about, and working with, spectacle designers to create nice frames.
That's what I think. Yeah.
Yeah. The downside of that is, my thought is, knowing Apple, they'll get people like Karl Lagerfeld and Gucci and Gabbana and bloody people like that, and they'll be horribly expensive. But there we go. I mean, I'm not quite sure, and it's only a rumour, obviously, but I think it did chime quite well with what we were saying last week, that, you could take the Apple Watch kind of route with that and have, various manufacturers designing frames, rather than Apple doing them all themselves, which might be quite nice. And actually in the Slack, we had a comment about, we were saying about how, you could go in to get your eyes tested and then they could say to you, would you like Apple frames for those? In a reverse comment, I think it might have been Alistair, said if you were marketing to geeks, get your Apple frames, come into your local optician, there would be a market opportunity there for them to say, well, while you're here, you have to have your eyes tested. And
yeah.
And they say, you do know you actually need corrective lenses, don't you?
Who said that?
But that was true. It could draw people in to
absolutely
to in order to go and look at Apple glasses, or to should such a thing come to pass. I mean, again, Ming Chi Kuo is talking about 2020 or late 2020. I still think that seems a bit early, but I suppose they could announce them in late 2020 and say we're going to introduce them in late 21. I don't know.
I suppose it depends on how long they've been working on it. I mean, if this has been something it's been cooking slowly in the background,
and I'm sure it has,
then there's no reason why it couldn't be this year. But we'll see.
We will see. I mean, I'm very much, and I've said it before, and I'm not afraid to repeat it. And whether I'm proved right or wrong is be neither here nor there. I'm pretty sure that the glasses, they will be aiming to make them as spectacle-like as possible.
Yes.
And that they will not have to be encumbered with batteries and lots of tech. I suspect they're going to work almost purely as a peripheral for your iPhone. And that they probably, well, I would guess maybe if you could make them work with a little tiny projector in the arm, which projected onto the lens, and that probably run off a tiny little battery, and that everything else was basically just pulled from the iPhone.
Yeah, it'll be just like how the watch started out.
Yes.
Where the watch was quite slow and you couldn't do anything on it initially without the iPhone, and then it gradually developed, and then from Series 3 onwards. And now with the Watch OS 6, it's got its own app store. And if you've got a cellular connection, it can be a standalone device.
Yeah, very much so. And to be honest, for what I think they're talking about, AR glasses, what most people expect them to do, I would, you would want them really to be pretty passive, because who wants to have a load of honking great lithium-ion batteries jammed up next to their head all day?
Yeah, precisely. Yeah.
There. Okay. Hong Kong protests. Apple has pulled the tracking app after China criticism. They also pulled a Quartz news app. People are either saying that they were forced by China, or alternatively they have caved into China. I think that depends on your political point of view. They're a little bit thorny. It's a thorn. We've been over this before. China and Apple and, democracy and Western viewpoints versus communist totalitarian viewpoint. I think Apple are in a very difficult situation there.
They are, aren't they? Yeah.
They're damned if they do, and they're damned if they don't.
I mean, the fact is they've been in this situation over other things, haven't they? So,
yes.
Yeah, it is a tricky one.
But
I must admit,
if you want to sell in China, you have to do what the Chinese government says. And as we've already said on this show many times, Apple are also beholden to China for their manufacturing. They can't just go stick their fingers up, because if the China then goes, right, we're shutting down all your factories, Apple would go from one of the most successful companies ever to broke very short, in very short order. I mean, we know that they're moving some of their factories. We've covered stories on that about things going to Malaysia or Indonesia, to Vietnam. There's talk about places like India and Brazil, but these things take time. You can't pick up the whole of Shenzhen and move it somewhere else. It doesn't work like that.
It's not quite the same, is it, if they had a keynote where they said, and the new Apple and the new iPhone will be available in 2.5 years' time.
Yeah, exactly. Because we've stopped making it in China, and so before we can build up enough to let you have it, we've got to stockpile them for 2 years. Yeah, that wouldn't go down very well, I don't think.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, dear. And realistically, that's pretty much all the Apple news there is this week. I'll be honest. So I think we should take a 5-minute break for John Nemo, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about desktop publishing. Okay?
Okay.
Take it away, John.
We're back with our final 2 lifestyle technology items here on Nemo's Hardware Store from our friends at the Grommet. TheGrommet, thegrommet.com. First item is $35 in the U.S. It's a pocket laser distance measurer. Will measure up to 15 meters, 50 feet. It fits very comfortably in the hand. It comes with 2 included AAA batteries. I point it at the wall. Boom. Tells me 20 feet away. That's it. It does exactly what it's supposed to do. The company is called Arrow, A-R-R-O-W. $35 pocket laser distance measurer. There are so many times this will come in handy for the homeowner, for the contractor, for the educator, for the lab person. Wherever you are, this is something that you don't need to take that old tape measure out anymore. It's just wonderful. Best $35 you will spend if you're doing any decorating, or if you have to measure something that is more than an arm's length away. Pocket laser distance measurer. Company is Arrow, sold by the Grommet. And follow the links on our website for this and the other product today to see some pictures of it and also to get some descriptions of how it works, plus a few reviews. One of the reviewers says, "Gone are the days of having to stretch out my bulky, hard-to-hold manual metal retractable measure. All I do is click to turn it on, aim at the intended wall space, click to pause the device, and read the measurement. It's about 6 inches long and an unusual soft triangle in its form factor." Again, you must look at the images to see what it looks like. There's a little slot so you can put a lanyard loop so you can wear it around your neck so you don't lose it, or put a grab handle on it. Well done, Arrow Pocket Laser Distance Measurer. Speaking of batteries included, for $18, you get a set of 2 collapsible LED lanterns. They're small lanterns, about 5 inches high by about 3 inches across, a cylinder shape, black. Unscrew the bottom, put in the 3 included batteries. Has these nice little metal handles that fold down to match the rounded shape. The company is called Vaunt, V-O-N-T, collapsible LED lantern, set of 2, $18 from the Grommet. After you put the batteries in, I'll put my recording down for a second. I take these handles and I pull them up. Whoa! This is really bright. It has 1, 2, 3 sides, and each side has 7 dual ultra bright LEDs. You can illuminate the whole campsite. You can annoy people 15 campgrounds over with this thing. It's very small, collapsible, brilliantly engineered, and there's been so many times that I've been camping or hiking or wanting to do something on the house or underneath the sink or work on something at night. I just need some extra light, working on the car in the garage or the garage, wherever you happen to be. This is a fabulous value. And to preserve battery power, when you're done, just push it down, closes, collapses, you've got the handles, and you can carry it around with you. Lightweight, but very bright. I really like what Vaunt, V-O-N-T, has done with the 2-pack LED camping lanterns from the Grommet. We definitely recommend the Grommet if you're interested in some lifestyle and personal tech catalog items, because they are an aggregator. They find the products that they think are the best, and that's all they carry. That's it. No fluff. So for us here at Essential Apple, being able to take a measure of things with the Arrow Laser Distance Measurer and keep on the bright side with a collapsible LED lantern set of 2 from Vaunt, that wraps it up for Nemo's Hardware Store. Back next week.
Thank you, John. And John has asked me to point out that one of last week's product, the Charge Hub 360, was in fact by Limitless Innovations, although it is also available via the Grommet. The show notes have been updated with a link to Limitless Innovations' original site. So, chaps, desktop publishing. Obviously, desktop publishing, to some extent, is how I make my living. So I've been doing desktop publishing almost as long as there's been desktop publishing. I guess a little bit of history. Desktop publishing, to a large extent, started sort of in the late 80s, very much with Aldous PageMaker. This was very much the first desktop publishing app of any note, which I started using at about version 3.5. And obviously, desktop publishing is a way of bringing what I used to do before that, the hard way with scalpels and hard copy type and Calgum and Letraset and all the rest of it, onto your screen so that you can do such things without getting your hands dirty.
Yeah, before I took over doing the church magazine, we used to have guys there used to be someone who would type it upon a typewriter, usually quite an old typewriter, so you couldn't read half the type. And then they duplicate it on one of these. I think they used to be called Gestetner.
Gestetner, yeah.
Where you turn the handle and it would just print. It'd layer ink on it, and it would just.
The thing with those machines, and I'll tell you why it's not actually that they were very old typewriters that you couldn't read half the type on. For
Right.
those, you actually had to use what was called a stencil.
Oh, that's right. You actually had to pierce the stencil.
They
with
had
the,
to be typed
with the
on
type, didn't you?
Yes, they had to be typed on the
Yeah.
stencil in your manual typewriter, which meant you had to hit the keys pretty bloody hard. And doing that for a long piece consistently is quite difficult. So what you would get is areas where people's fingers got tired and they weren't striking them quite so hard. Alternatively, you would get the bits where people struck them too hard, and the middle of the O or the or an R or something would actually
Yes.
come out, and then they'd get
A black dot.
great big blobs of ink on them. Yeah, they were a physical stencil which had to be bashed with the keys, and then they were put into the Gestetner or Roneo machine.
Roneo, that was it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gestetner and Roneo were the two, but they're basically stencil printers. Yes, very much so. I think I mentioned one of these, mentioned that previously when I said about I used to have a magazine, an APA magazine called Alarms and Excursions, which was a desktop role playing game magazine, and that was done that way because we're talking about the early 80s. And some people were attempting to do their stencils using a dot matrix printer, and they were universally, not hitting the stencils hard enough, and their pages would be almost unreadable. There we are. Anyway, all that aside, a lot of people, I think, are interested in getting into amateur, desktop publishing for any number of reasons. I mean, as we've said, you do a church magazine, Nick. Pete does a village magazine and a school newsletter. I, in the past, have done things like games, fanzine type things and the like. And a lot of people, I think, are put off because they think it's either going to be expensive or it's going to be difficult. And neither of those.
I mean, there definitely are. If you're coming to it with no knowledge, there are definitely stumbling blocks. We tried using a photocopier for a while, and that was a real nightmare because they jam far too often. And if you're doing, we haven't got a huge print run, but if you're doing, I don't know, between 2,000 and 4,000 copies. A photocopier, particularly if you've only got, the church won't have a very expensive photocopier. They just jam so often that it takes you hours and hours and hours to actually print the magazine. Yeah, and you learn that, you learn that by doing it, and then realizing that it's just taken us a whole day to print a fairly small magazine.
I would say you can use a photocopier to turn out magazines.
Oh, absolutely.
But you need to use the ones that are designed for the task, because each copier is assigned by the manufacturer the number of copies they think it can do each month without breaking down. And if you've got a very small one, then you're looking at very low thousands there. But if you're using production print machines, which are glorified photocopiers, then you can easily do that. But of course, most places like churches and the like can't run to that sort of budget, and they're relying on cast-offs and cheap machines.
I would say you're right there. That's very much true. Depending, of course, on the budget, but you can do it with a photocopier if you get one that's in the right bracket. The earlier ones, very much so, were were not reliable enough to they were designed to do 10 or 20 copies at a time, not 500. Some of you buy a newer one and a little bit more expensive. Unfortunately, there's no real way to find out how good a machine is going to be until you've got it, installed it, and started using it. And if it's not up to the task, you're a bit sunk.
And in all honesty, a church isn't going to spend any more than a maximum of about 1,200 or 1,500 on a photocopier.
Yeah.
No. And that's just not enough if you want to do regular print runs of a fair size.
No, very much not.
Very much true.
But we found a way around that. I don't know.
Yes, go on, then.
So we found a way around that because we got to a point where the people who were helping to produce the magazine were saying, we'd like a life outside of producing the magazine. We actually had a guy come and talk to us about putting a projector in the church, and he stayed with me overnight, and we got chatting, and he said, I was telling him about the problems we'd had with the photocopier. That we'd actually gone to a small company to produce them for us, but that was probably doubling the cost of doing it because we were, trying to keep cost right down. And he said, "Have you heard of a digital duplicator?" And of course, I thought you meant a photocopier because that's what it sounds a bit like. And he said, "No, a digital duplicator is different. You'll find big companies like schools and where they're having to do thousands and thousands of copies will use a digital duplicator." And a digital duplicator is like the modern version of the old Gestetner Roneo jobbies, but it looks like a photocopier. And you scan your master, and the master is burned onto a stencil, just the same as the way it used to be done. But then it just uses ink, and the paper goes straight through it. So there's no chance of it getting stuck on a roller because it's actually going straight through the machine.
Right.
And it's ink that's printing on it. So I had a look around and I managed to find a second-hand one. I think it's got about 1 million copies on it. But these things do tens of millions.
Yeah.
For about 600 quid.
Oh, nice.
So I bought it, and the church at the time said, "Oh, I'm not sure we can afford that at the moment." And so I said, "Well, look, don't worry. I'll buy it. You pay me a penny a copy for the magazine." And within a few years, they'd paid me back all the money I'd spent on it. And we've saved enough money to buy a new one if we needed to.
Excellent.
Which is brilliant. And they're great if you've got a print run that's a few thousand, because it's no good using it as a photocopier.
No.
Then they're fantastic. Okay, they don't print in colour, but we don't need colour. And they just go on and on and on. I mean, I think we must have had this thing about 12 years now. And just literally about a month ago, I had to get in someone to look at it because it had locked up completely for the first time. And all he did was clean it. He cleaned it. He said, "There you go. It's working again now." So hopefully I'll get another 12 years out of it.
Very good. Very, very good. So
not only that, the cost of running them is cheaper as well.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
So it's about a third of a penny a copy or something like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Very much so.
Has it got any sort of finishing capabilities on it, or does it?
Not really. No.
Okay.
So we have to print them both sides individually.
Yes.
But it jams so rarely that we can rely on it to do that. It takes me about an hour to put our how many copies on average? Probably somewhere between 12 and 14 copies per magazine. And we do about 200 magazines.
Yeah. Okay.
And I can do that reliably with it hardly ever jamming.
So that's about 2,800 impressions. Is that right?
That sounds about right.
Yeah, it's about 14 pages, 7 sheets.
Yeah. Of course, this machine would do far more than that. We're actually only sort of tickling at the edges of its capabilities.
And then you hand collate and fold and saddle stitch by hand. Is that right?
Yes. We've got a small team that get together, and some of the money we've managed to make from using this machine, we bought something called a Auto Bookie, which is a folding and stapling machine.
Yeah.
And then recently I managed to, so that was secondhand as well. We're doing pretty well for secondhand stuff.
Yeah.
And then recently, because one of the guys was complaining, we got some manual saddle stitch staplers.
Yeah.
Which are basically staplers with like a V shape that you staple on.
Yeah. They've got a saddle. The V shape is the saddle. Yeah.
Yes. But recently, I managed to find on, I think it was on Facebook ads, someone selling an electric version, an old one, but that was working fine. And I ended up meeting him at Corley Services because he said, "Oh, I'm coming down that way," and I said, "Well, look, I'll meet you at Corley Services."
Yeah, I know Corley Services. Yeah,
and we picked it up there, and we've used it once so far, and I think it's going to speed up our production a little. So yeah, keeping your eyes open for decent second-hand equipment coming onto the market is quite a useful thing to do.
It is. It is very much so. And you're right saying about decent second-hand equipment. There are companies, and being in the print trade, there are companies who are constantly ringing us up and saying, "Have you got any kit you want to sell?" And of course, what they do is they will take it away, refurbish it, and sell it second-hand. Now, because obviously professional printers are always looking to improve the quality of the kit and get, faster kit, bigger kit, whatever. There is a thriving market for that sort of thing. Small booklet makers, saddle stitchers, all those kind of things. If you know where to look, search the web, and you will find people who sell this stuff.
I think part of the problem, is knowing that stuff's there.
It is, yes. If you don't work in the print environment.
That's right. I mean, I've stumbled across these things while I've been trying to find a solution to a problem, and thought, oh, that'd work for us.
Yeah. I've sold stuff in the past. Companies I've worked at, we've sold out of date kit or kit that's just slightly broken, but we can't get it fixed. We've sold stuff to companies, and they're more than happy to come out and collect it from you and they give you a small amount of money for it, and then take it away and refurb it and sell it on. So as you say, if you don't work in the print industry, you probably don't know that happens.
No,
that's right.
Or in fact, for example, a saddle stitcher, for putting the stitches or staples, as those who are not in the print trade would think of them, in the spine of a magazine, is something you've got to know about. You have to know it exists before you can buy one. In the past, I've known people who used to make booklets, and they would buy long arm staplers, and then have to put the stitches in the middle of their magazine first, and then fold it afterwards.
And then fold it. Yeah, you'd be there all day.
Oh wow! You certainly would.
Yes, exactly. But there we go. Anyway, we've kind of come at this for reasons unknown to any of us. We seem to have come at it from the back end, as it were. We've come from the production part.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. Yeah,
but never mind. No, it's all valid. So let's sort of roll back then, shall we? And go. Let's go to the front end, as it were.
Yes.
And talk about how you go. Everybody here has put some points in their own little document, and we've all got things to say. So I think, Pete, you've got some good comments. So we'll bring those in a moment.
Yeah.
And I think what I'm going to do is ask. Nick's written a piece about how he goes about building a magazine kind of from the ground up. So if we let Nick kind of lead, and then we can interject when we've got relevant points, I think, if that's all right with you boys.
Sure.
Because Nick's is kind of mine. It was a list of comments. Pete's is a list of helpful tips, and Nick's is kind of a how-to, if you like, starting
an essay.
Well, no, it's a perfectly valid way, and it's a very good piece. So I think we'll go with that, and we'll take it from there.
Right, yeah. Well, I first started off. So we had this couple who were getting quite elderly, who were producing the church magazine, and they decided, obviously, that they got to an age where it wasn't for them anymore. And at the time, we decided just to do some notices that were sort of slightly larger, so they were given out every week to everybody. And I took over doing that. And at the time, I'd got a PC. And of course, I looked around for some DTP software, and I stumbled across Page Plus
from Serif.
Which,
and I have to say, is although Page Plus was on Windows only, I have over the years I recommended that to people, person after person who would come to me and say, I want to do this, but I've only got a PC, I don't want to buy an Apple, I don't want to spend a lot of money, and I'd say, go out and get Page Plus. Get Page Plus.
That's right. It's not a bad piece of software. It might crash occasionally, but on the whole, it was pretty reliable and pretty much did what I needed it to do at the time. So yeah, Page Plus was a good starting place. So I was using that for a while. Then we had a new minister come who asked around and got the impression that people really missed the magazine, the monthly magazine. So we produce 10 magazines a year. So we have a couple of double issues.
Right.
Usually at really, Christian-wise, a busy time of year like Christmas. We do a double issue, so that I'm not having to produce a magazine on Christmas.
Yes, well, exactly. And we obviously at work we produce a lot of village mags, parish mags, church magazines, newsletters.
Yes.
And it is very common for them to do either 10 or 11 issues a year, if they're nominally monthly. The commonest one to be a double is December, January, for exactly that.
Right.
That so that the editors and the rest of the team don't have to spend Boxing Day, through to New Year, scrabbling to get a magazine together. So that's commonly a double one. And often people will have a double issue, say August, September, because of holiday times, I guess.
Well, it's not just holiday time, because I'm not sure whether it's true for other denominations, but the Methodist Church, which I belong to, they swap ministers as around about that time, so the church sort of shuts down for August, pretty much, and as a consequence, there isn't an awful lot going on to actually write a magazine about.
Is it like the transfer window?
Yeah, that's right. It's very much like the transfer window.
Can't you have
ministers don't get what footballers do.
No, I'm afraid, yeah. Perhaps wrongly. Perhaps that should be the other way round. But there we go. That's a whole different. That's a whole different discussion. You could put out an exciting list of transfers.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
So in 2007, that magical year, I bought my first iMac. And of course, straight away, I was thinking, okay, what can I use on this machine? So I could have dual booted it into Windows, but very quickly found that actually it comes with this thing called Pages. Now, I know Mark runs down Pages at every opportunity, but actually I find Pages works perfectly for me. I haven't got complex needs. I think the important thing to remember is if all you're doing is putting pictures and text, maybe the odd table and whatever, that the word processing mode in Pages is fine. You don't need to use the layout. And I think trying to use the layout actually makes it more complicated. So I just use the word processor mode. I know that I've got to do a multiple of 4 pages, so it folds into a magazine. So it might have 28 pages or 32 pages or 36 pages or whatever.
Yeah.
So that you can fold it neatly into a booklet. But then I just use the word processor mode in Pages, and I've been doing that ever since 2007. And I haven't felt a need to buy another desktop publishing software. It's fine.
And if your needs are, I'm sure people agree, if your needs are fairly lightweight, and you don't need to do a lot of clever tomfoolery, then there is nothing wrong with that. In my job, I have a bit of a personal dislike for word processors being used to do layout.
Right, yeah. Well, I can understand that. And in all honesty, trying to do it in Word would be a nightmare because, the way Word does tables, for instance, is just horrible.
Oh, yeah.
I've always hated the tables. I see other people using them and think,
yes.
no.
The biggest problem with any word processor, when you're, making something that's a multi-page document where you want things to stay where you put them, is that it's designed basically to do word processing. And often what will happen if you're not careful is, you move a picture on page 5 and unknown to you, it's buggered the whole thing up everywhere else. Yep. Now, if you're used to it and you know what you're doing with it, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with anything. Yeah. Since the rise of PDF as the kind of lingua franca of document transmission, it doesn't really matter what the days of if it wasn't done in a top professional package, PageMaker or Quark Express, nobody would touch it, are long gone, because I don't really care how a file was put together. It could be put together with Scribble Draw 1 that came off the back of a packet of cornflakes. I don't care, as long as it can make a half decent PDF that can be handed to me, and then I can deal with that.
As long as it's come out as a print ready PDF, you're fine.
Exactly. So in that respect, over the last 20 years, things have, for amateur publishers, have got much easier. Yeah. Because you do not.
And of course, if you've got a Mac, you've got it built in.
Yes.
PCs still don't have PDF publishing built in. So, I mean, that was one of the best things when I bought a Mac for the first time, was realizing that I could output almost anything as a PDF. I thought, whoa.
Yeah, amazing. Yes. For those who are on Windows, I tend to highly recommend PDF Creator, which you can get from SourceForge.
Oh, right, okay.
Which will create PDFs, and it's free. There's a free version of that. Obviously, they bug you to upgrade for extra features, but for most people, from SourceForge is absolute fine.
So, shall I move on?
Yes, move on. Sorry.
Right. So, the next thing I thought about was how we were going to lay it out and get it printed. So, I fairly early on tried several things to. So we printed at A5, so it's A4 folded. So we want the pages to be A5 size. And I struggled, I must admit, with printer drivers and getting things to print properly and for a little while. But I eventually stumbled onto a piece of software called Cheap Imposter, which is, I think I've probably mentioned before, is a play on words because I believe putting it round and printing it as a booklet is called imposing.
Yes, it is.
And that's why it's called Cheap Imposter.
It's a cheap imposter.
Software.
We have at work for doing that. We have a piece of software called Quite Imposing, which is
okay, good.
Which
Very
is
good. I like those.
Yes,
it's a little bit like hairdresser names.
Yeah,
so
quite imposing. Although that's a much more complex piece of software that would do all sorts of very clever things. In fact, it's overkill for what we use it for. I'll be honest. But that's a plug-in to Acrobat Pro.
Right.
So, but yes,
the thing I liked about it, of course, it started with the word cheap.
Yes, well, cheap imposter is very much a very well-known piece. And I found another one as well. And I'm just Create Booklet 2 is another one which is well heard of. Cheap Imposter has been around forever. But
yes, it has been around a long time. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But there's another one which is on the App Store, Mac App Store, called Create Booklet 2.
Okay.
Which is another good a good way of doing it. So, Nick, do you work on your pages as A4 and then let the imposer shrink them down, or do you work at A5?
Yeah, I do.
Then... Oh, right, you do.
No, I do it that way round. So I have to bear in mind when I'm building the pages that I have to make everything bigger than I would normally do, and of course, working on a computer, you can't really tell. But basically, I make my headings about 24 point and my body text about 18 point, which is a lot larger than you would do normally.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
So that when it shrinks it actually becomes a nice readable size for the user.
Well, I was going to the reason I asked you that is one of the things I was going to say is one of the tips I normally give people is to try and work on the correct size page. And the main reason for that is we sometimes get work sent in, and people have worked on A4 and then said, "Oh, you can shrink that to A5 for us, can't you, to make a booklet?" Well, yes, we can. However, if they haven't made allowance, as Nick has just pointed out, if you set something in, say, 10-point type, which is
you end up with very little text,
right? 10-point type, which is perfectly readable, sort of newspaper size type or book size type. If you then shrink that down to A5, you're going to 70% size. That will become 7-point type. That's, just above legal small print.
Yeah.
The other thing that people tend to forget if they do that is that the margins will shrink proportionately as well. So if you want 10 mil margins, you really need to have 15 mil margins on your A4. Otherwise, you will end up with a booklet where the type runs perilously close to the edge of the paper, or the trim, as it's known in the trade. But anyway, sorry, Nick, you do have to if you're going to work on an A4 to be shrunk, you have to bear in mind that everything is going to reduce to about 3/4 of the size.
Yes, and that's trial and error, really, and just trying it out and seeing how it looks when you print it. And
did you try to work on A5, or was it just that you kind of started out on A4 and just went with it?
No, I don't think I ever did try. I always found trying to set up A5 and making it work complicated.
I think, you see, that might be one of the criticisms of pages, whereas if you go to something perhaps one step up, like Be Light's Swift Publisher, that has more support for doing magazine work. So it would do A5. It will show you, for example, pages side by side as well, so that when you can see pages 2 and 3 together. And
that's fair enough. Yeah, that's quite possible.
And 4 and 5.
Of course, we're going back to 2007 when I started doing this. So, has Be Light been around that long?
Oh, yeah. I'm not sure how long Be Light has been around, but it's been around a very long time.
Okay, fair enough.
They're on version 5 now. I'm not sure exactly when they launched Be Light, but it's been kicking around for a long time, that's for sure.
No.
So, Nick, if you're
alternative.
Oh, yeah.
Nick, you've been doing this since 2007.
Yeah.
You obviously enjoy it, I assume.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
One of the things I would say to people is, I find it really satisfying laying out a magazine and then seeing the finished article, come through my door. And
then hopefully getting a little bit of feedback from your readers too.
That's right. Yeah. If you don't find that satisfying, then maybe you're not the right person to be doing a village magazine, or I think you've got to enjoy it.
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, okay, there might be occasions when I think, oh no, I've got to do the magazine again. But once I'm actually sat in front of the computer doing it,
I think
I actually like the process of putting it together.
I think that's true. When you're doing, there are always, like anything, like doing this show. There are sometimes on a Sunday morning when I think, I've got to do a show this afternoon. But of course, once I sit down and I open the notes and start making notes and thinking who's coming on, then of course, you get all fired up for it. And the same thing with the magazine. Sometimes you think, I've got to do the magazine this weekend or whatever. But again, once you sit down and start on it, then if it's something you enjoy, you soon get into it. And
absolutely.
I think, all right, you're talking about using pages. I'm going to just go over to Pete a bit now, because I know, Pete, you work mostly in Quark Express, don't you?
I do, for the larger publications, although the school's weekly publication, which is an e-newsletter, usually about 2 or 3 pages, I use Microsoft Publisher.
Okay.
And I quite like that, I've got to say. I know you can't get it on the Mac. But I think if you've got Office 365 personal account, it costs you £60 a year, and you get the whole suite then, Microsoft Word, Excel, Publisher, etc. And if you're used to using Microsoft stuff, then I think you'll feel right at home, and all of the apps work well together. If I know we probably only have Apple people listening to this, but because I've got a foot in both camps, I think Publisher's a really good program for what it is.
I think it's a matter of finding what works for you, isn't it? Really,
very much so.
It's not so much this particular software is better than this particular software. It's what fits with the way that you want to work.
Yes, precisely.
Very much so. I mean, I personally don't like Publisher very much. There are things that it does in the way that it works that it bug me. All right, they irritate me as a professional. It's like, why are you doing that in this apparently backwards fashion? But that's that's sort of technical snobbery. Also, unfortunately, Publisher does not always make the nicest PDFs.
No,
right? And that's a professional thing. It can
right.
It can do weird things to PDFs which make them difficult to print when you hand them off to somebody else. It's better now than it used to be. It used to do some very nasty things to PDFs, but that's by the by. But that doesn't make it a bad product. It just means I've got a personal bit of a grudge against it. And when people come to me and ask me about such things, obviously I would often try and steer them towards Serif Page Plus or now Affinity. But of course, a lot of people say, "Oh, but I've got Office." It's like, what about? I say, "Well, have you got Publisher with that?" Yes, I have. Then start there.
Definitely start there. Yeah, if you've already got it.
If you've already, it's one of those things. If you're talking about starting as an amateur, on a budget, start with something you've got. And if that works for you, that's fine. And if you find that it doesn't do what you want, or you want more features, look for something else.
What do you use, Simon?
Well,
as a professional.
At work, I use obviously Adobe InDesign.
Right.
Pete uses Quark Express, which is again,
Yeah.
a considerable sum of money, but I think he got hold of that some time ago, and it's one of those, he's
Well, I'm lucky that the Quark are very good with their educational pricing.
right. So he's good.
So,
You've got a deal there, you see.
So
and
it's £100 basically instead of 900.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yes.
That is a good discount.
I think they've actually dropped the price of Quark Express down to about 700 now, but whatever. It doesn't matter. It's not a cheap program, and it never has been. It's up in the bracket when before Adobe went subscription, you would expect to pay £700 to £1,000 for the Creative Suite. So And this is something, of course, that puts people off. People are scared that they're going to have to spend that sort of money when, of course, you don't. I mean, Be Like Publisher or Pages you can get for free if you're on the Mac. Be Like Publisher is probably, I think, is £15 or £20. What's the other one? Publisher Plus from Pearl Mountain. That's about £15, £20. And then, of course, you can move on up to your Affinity where you're talking £50. So,
which are all quite reasonable.
All quite bearable, aren't they? They're all...
the other thing I would say is look at each company's pricing structure for their educational. Microsoft, I think, used to be really quite flexible. You only had to be the parent or guardian, or I think the grandparents of someone who was in full-time education to qualify for education pricing. Not sure how that is now. And I got my own personal copy of Quark a few years ago because I was doing a graphic design call with the Open with the Arts, so I qualified. So I went through a company called Software for Students and got a heavy discount there. And the most recent version of Quark that I'm using, I get because I work at the school, and the school pays £100 a one-off, and we get 2 licenses with that.
Well, that's pretty decent, isn't it?
That's right, yeah. And unlike Adobe, those 2 licenses can be on different platforms. So one could be Windows, one could be Mac. But we looked at Adobe. Not only were they more expensive, but they gave you 2 licenses, but they both had to be on PC or both on Mac.
Yes,
which I found
really something that
I don't know why
they've been like that for years, and that's something for years they would only give you 1 license, so it took them forever to allow you 2 licenses. And they finally kind of gave in and said, all right, you can have 2 licenses, and their reckoning for that was so you can have one on your desktop and one on your laptop. But they still basically refuse to, even though it's a cross-platform, they refuse to, if you want a Windows license, you have to buy a Windows license, and if you want a Mac license, you have to buy a Mac license.
Yeah, right.
Yes, exceedingly annoying. And there we go.
So moving on a little. So the next thing I thought about when I was beginning to put the magazine together, I'd read quite a lot about layout and the thing of the 70s and 80s was just because you've got 300 fonts, don't use them all on one page.
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
And I actually stumbled across. I think I probably found it at I think it was a computer fair somewhere. Something called the Non-Designer's Design Book by Robin Williams. And I found it really helpful. It's quite short. He breaks his ideas down into 4 ideas: contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. And he basically says, if you're going to use contrast, use it properly. Don't play at it. Just do proper contrast. If you're going to make your text big, make it really big. If you're going to make text small, make it small. Repetition was, have some kind of theme that goes through the whole booklet. And I mean, if you look at a lot of publications, you can see these general principles being used. You might get a booklet that has a little coloured strip on the top which indicates what section you're in and that kind of thing, and that goes through the whole booklet.
Yes. Yeah.
Then a lot was, if you've got information that needs to be together, put it together. Yeah, don't put the first line of the address at the top of the document and the last line of the address at the bottom of the document. Not a good idea. And proximity was make things align, basically. Don't just throw them on the page. And I found those sort of simple, and he gave examples in the booklet, and I found those simple ideas are quite a good thing for a sort of our church magazine, and I've stuck to that really. I tries to use one or maybe two different fonts at the most, and I only use one header throughout the whole magazine. Occasionally someone will give me something that is completely different, but because it has a life of its own, as it were, I leave it as it is. On the whole, I mean, I've seen a lot of church magazines which literally are different font in every box, and it does look a bit of a mess. So I've tried to keep ours readable, and I'm told by other people who read it that they love the magazine, they love the content, and it is very readable. And I'm pleased, obviously, about that.
Yeah, no, I would just like to add to that. The non-designer's design book is a great book. You get it for about £10 on Amazon. It's a second-hand paperback. I'm flicking through my copy now, and it's a great book if you're starting out.
It is. It's a very, very, very good book. And I would just point out, by the way, that Robin is a woman.
Yes.
Okay.
Robin Williams is a woman.
I know a Robin who's a woman as well. So.
Yes, it's her full name is Robin Patricia Williams, apparently.
Yeah.
Right. Well, there you go.
Who's written? She's written. Yeah, The Mac is Not a Typewriter is one of her books. And the Little Mac book, which was kind of a Mac Bible back in the 90s.
Oh, right. I didn't know. I haven't seen those other books. No.
Well, the Little Mac book was very, very much a kind of, the Bible of people coming to Mac in the 90s.
Oh, right. Okay.
Anyway, yes, that is a very, very, very good book for sure.
Yeah. And I would certainly reiterate what Nick has said there. Yeah, no more than 2 or 3 fonts. Maybe a different font for the header, then a more readable font for the main text, etc. And then, stick to it, be consistent, make sure everything's aligned, and you've got the basis of a good magazine or newsletter there.
Yes, very much so.
I expect it's like a lot of these things, isn't it? It's a little bit like when you're writing music. Knowing the basic rules is important, and it's only when you really have got to grips with those basic rules that you can actually break the rules a bit.
Very much so. It's very much a case of learn the basics and stick to the rule.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're familiar with the rules, you will find and spot the places where breaking the rules helps.
That's it.
For impact, for contrast, for thing. And I think one of the things I always say to people is don't be afraid of templates.
No, take a template and then modify it to your own.
There are, I mean, the ones I've mentioned before, things like Swift Publisher and Pages come with a vast array of professionally designed templates to help you out.
Yes.
And there is absolutely nothing wrong with flicking through those and finding one that you like and then using that.
That's right. And I mean, the truth is, once you've actually developed a style you like, you tend to reuse that, so you're actually using it as a template anyway.
Yes. Yeah, very much are. Yeah. And of course, one of my top tips is don't forget to make use of the things that the computer can do for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, running headers and footers and making use of master pages. Let the program put the page numbers on for you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And things like setting up
your
default,
type styles.
A default header and a default, so that when you want to insert stuff, you just literally. Do you know one of the things I like most about Pages is the quick way you can get to paste in the style of the magazine.
Mm.
And I actually use PopClip.
Okay.
So I've got a shortcut in PopClip, which means I can very, very quickly. So if I copy something, as soon as I click inside the magazine, it gives me a PopClip option for pasting in the style of the magazine.
Oh, that's it. Oh, okay, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to look into that, Nick.
Yes, yeah. When I found PopClip, I thought, oh, that's just what I'm after, because it's about 3 or 4 key presses or something like that if you want to do it manually.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, I recommend PopClip for that. It just saves that little bit of time when you're inserting lots of. So when I get stuff arriving for the magazine, quite often it's in emails, and people will try and format it themselves. And of course,
they will.
9 times out of 10, 9 times out of 10, I'll take that off and put our house style on it anyway.
Yeah.
So material-wise, I get quite a lot of stuff being sent to me by email these days. Almost all of it, actually. Yeah. Just occasionally, someone will hand me a note, and I'll have to type it up myself. It used to be more prevalent, back in 2007, but in these days, almost everyone's got email. And resources-wise, there's a very good webpage for churches called Parish Pump, which for a subscription, you pay an annual subscription, but it's not a huge amount of money. And they produce lots and lots of sort of filler material. They'll do cartoons, they'll do cover page images, all that sort of thing to help you put a magazine together. So that hasn't been around since 2007, but it's something I rely on now for, when you're laying a magazine out, there's nearly always a little bit here where you've got a space where you're not quite sure what to do with that. Yeah. And they have lots and lots of sort of little one-line jokes and things like that, which could just fill a little corner in the magazine. Yeah. So I find that very useful. And the other place that I go to, of course, for a Christian magazine is Christian charity websites, which seem to have quite a lot of material on there for their for churches to use. So that's very useful.
Yeah, that's actually something we should probably mention is obviously if you want images and graphics, if obviously you might want to create them yourself. A big tip, if you're going to put photographs into something that's going to be in black and white, take your photograph into a photo editor of your choice. Photos even will do, and make it black and white, because a lot of times people will send me pictures in colour, and if there's something like a boys' football team, and they're taken in a not particularly great light, and they're wearing a blue, they're wearing blue, and they're against green grass and a green hedge, and you turn it black and white, it just turns into a sea of grey. Yeah. And at least if you do that, you will see what you're going to get, and at that point you can use your sliders to give it extra contrast or whatever. Relying on colour being converted to black and white on the fly can get you into a lot of trouble. In fact, I'm not going to mention who, but we did actually print a magazine, and nobody spotted this, but they put a bar along the bottom of the front page with a statement in it, but it was in colour, and the magazine was printed in black and white, and when it came out in black and white you couldn't see the statement because they'd done it orange against green, and when it was converted it was just grey.
That's a good tip, thanks Simon. I must admit I do tend to print in colour and then photocopy, which perhaps isn't the best thing to do. Well, I do end up with some quite dark photos sometimes.
Well, if you convert them to black and white before you put them in, you will have a good idea what they're likely to come out with. And sometimes, quite often, in black and white, you may want to brighten them a fraction.
That's useful.
That's right. Yeah. I always convert them to mono first, and then you can play around, as Simon says, with the contrast and brightness, and you can see what they're actually going to look like.
Yeah, and the other thing is something that a lot of amateurs overlook is when they've got pictures to put into their magazines, they just place the image as it's been sent to them. They never think that you can increase the impact of a photograph often simply by cropping it and getting rid of junk. If it's a photograph of a football team, you don't need 12 foot of grass in the front of the picture.
That's right.
Crop down, and you don't need 6 foot of sky either. Just crop to the lads.
Yes.
And that will make your picture so much more appealing, and a little bit of brightening or whatever. And also, if pictures are on the as we like to say, straighten them so the horizon is level. it will look so much better.
Those are all good tips. I mean, I must admit, photo bit of it, I'm not particularly good with. So thanks for those. They're I'm going to use all of those. That's good advice.
Yeah. Yeah, I always end up cropping photos. Well, I say always. We've got somebody in the village who submits photos to us who's a keen amateur, so his photos are good. But if there's a photo that somebody's taken on their iPhone of someone in the group of people at the Women's Institute or something like that, then you can bet your bottom dollar that they'll be in the middle of a sea of sky and pavement or something. Yeah, so you end up cropping them so you can actually see the people. And the same thing at the school as well.
Very much so. And whilst we're talking about graphics and photograph, don't go to Google and steal too many photographs. It's not a good idea.
Oh yeah.
There are plenty of sites available on the net who will happily give you photographs and graphics, clip art, which is completely free. They are happy to give it away. From Nick's point of view, from churches, I mean, clip art for churches is just put in clip art for churches and you'll get a billion hits. But there are plenty of sites out there. For example, if I have a quick look here, I've got a list.
I think we've talked about these before, haven't we?
Yeah, I mean, there are people like Free Digital Photos, freephoto.com, freevector.com, free images from Pixabay. There are loads, Go look for somewhere who will happily let you take graphics and use them, and you're not in any risk of
I think the annoying thing is when you do start to look for them, quite often you do come across a lot of copyrighted stuff. And sometimes it's a matter of persevering because, as you say, they're out there. There is stuff you can use that has no copyright on them whatsoever, and people are quite happy for you to use them. It's just a matter of persevering sometimes.
It is. I have now sort of amassed a list of probably a dozen sites that you can go to in search of things which are completely free, and you don't have to worry that you're going to be impinging on anybody's copyright. So
I think the one I use most if it's photos I'm after is Unsplash.
Yes. Unsplash.
And I think it's called. I think there's another website that's very much like it that you've talked about, and I can't remember which one it was. But they look almost identical to one another, but they're basically copyright free stuff to use. I think sometimes they ask if you're using them, and you should put a
could you credit where you got them from?
Or at the very least let the person know through the website that you're going to use it. So.
And of course,
I think the thing to take away here is whatever you do, don't use Microsoft Clip Art.
No.
That will mark your publication out as a someone who hasn't thought about it.
Or Microsoft Word Art, which is
equally
as ghastly. Yeah. Yeah, if you want to do Microsoft Word type art, go and get letters or something like that. So there we go.
I think the next bit is probably the bit that's probably caused me most aggro, and it's not specifically because of the person that I'm working with. Proofing.
Oh yes.
Yes.
So it is important, and I think Pete, you've got a note about this, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely get somebody who hasn't worked on the publication to look at it, and they can proofread it. And if they're good at spelling and grammar, even better.
Yeah. If I've got a teacher, fortunately, so she is quite good at grammar.
Yes.
But it's just having a different pair of eyes looking at it, really, isn't it?
Yeah, the number of times that I've missed.
Sometimes you can read a thing 4 or 5 times and still not see there's an error in it.
Yeah.
You've done it, if you've typed it yourself.
Well, here's this thing. One, you read what you think is there. Okay?
Yeah, that's right.
You've done it yourself. It's the classic Paris in the spring trick.
Yes, yeah.
And the other thing is, a fresh set of eyes will see things that you just can't see. My father said that when he was an apprentice, he was told, if you're going to make a typo, do it in the headline in 72-point black type because no one will ever see it.
Yeah.
Because people don't read headlines, they see them. So if you're going to put a typo, do it there. No one will ever spot it. Because they'll read what they think it says. Get somebody who didn't write it or type it to read it. Definitely. That is probably one of the biggest tips there is.
Yes, there used to be a joke about the Guardian. It used to be called the Groeniad.
The Groeniad.
Yeah. I still call it that.
It's to those of us of a certain age. I think it was Private Eye nicknamed it that, wasn't it? The Groeniad.
I think it was. Yes.
Yeah. So
the reason I've had problems with proofreading is because the person who proofreads for me, bless her, is really not techie at all. She has a computer and she can do simple things like sending emails and typing stuff is about it, really. So over time, the process which we use to proof has changed quite a lot. So originally, I would send her a PDF copy of the magazine, and she would write the amendments into the email and send it back. That was probably the worst one. It was most work for her. Then we tried for a little while trying to export to Word from Pages, which sort of worked, but she used to get really concerned about the fact that it wasn't laid out properly. And I used to say, "Don't worry, the master will be fine." And she tried to, and she used markup in Word, so I could see quite clearly what she'd changed. But even that wasn't perfect. And then eventually, Apple released collaboration in Pages, and believe it or not, it works. So I can send. She hasn't got a Mac. I can send her. Basically, you go to. I can't remember what it is. What the word is? It's collaborate. It must be collaborate. You go to collaborate in Pages. You click on collaborate. I send her an email, and she then can open that in iPages for the Mac online, and she can edit it. She can actually edit the master document, and then when she then lets me know when she's finished, I go back and have one final check before to make sure she hasn't done anything disastrous, like adding an extra line where and it's pushed everything out of alignment. But apart from that, that works really well. So I'm really hoping Apple don't break it when they update things.
Please don't break that, Apple. Please don't break
because
that.
it took quite a lot to get her set up with that. I eventually had to go to her house and actually make sure that she could open the document properly. Of course, she needed an iCloud account to actually do that. And it was a bit of a pain to actually get set up. So I do hope they don't break it, because it does make life a lot easier for her to be able to just edit the original document and then tell me it's done.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. And what we do with the Village magazine, I export a PDF, and I've managed to persuade our editor to invest in some PDF editing software. So
that's good. That's another way through. Yeah.
And we use Dropbox, so she just notes it and then resaves it with her initials, and the changes are highlighted in yellow. So.
That's useful. Yeah, that's useful. I'm not sure whether I could have persuaded Barbara to buy anything else, but that's good.
Yeah, and at the school, I'm afraid we're quite analog. I print it out as an actual folded, saddle stitched magazine, or at that lower resolution than the actual thing, because it's 32 pages long. I should point out. And, then the person who's reading it. Or proofreading it was an English teacher, but he was quite non-techie. He would come back to me with the same sort of things that you have just said. Oh, I'm concerned that this doesn't. Yeah, don't worry, it won't look like that in the. So in the end, I print it out as a 32-page A3 folded and saddle stitched magazine, and then just reassure him that it will look higher quality when it comes back from the printers. And then he makes at a weekend, he takes it to the pub, has a pint, and proofreads it and notes in red pen.
Oh, cool.
Which, there's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with a good old analog way of editing it. Marking
that's
it.
Right.
So, there we go. Time's ticking away, so I think we should probably wrap up.
I think we're pretty much at an end, aren't we? Because we've already done the end bit.
Yeah. We have done the end bit. We did the end bit first. Yeah, we did. One thing I will say, this is one of Pete's comments here. This applies more if you're working on an A4 document, but as he says, use 2 or 3 column format, not a huge slab of text. That doesn't apply quite so much to the A5 format because on an A5, newsletter, the width of a line is bearable. But on the whole, if you're going to do A4, it's far better to use a 2 or 3 column format because it's much easier to read. It's all right on an A4.
I think I've seen. I used to get a magazine years ago. In fact, I've probably still got some of them upstairs somewhere. It was a Mac magazine, I think. Oh no, it wasn't. No, I tell you what it was. It was the Archimedes, when I had an Archimedes machine. And it was a guy who used to, he'd do a very small number of them, and it was quite techy, which meant I liked it, of course. But he used to do 2 columns on A5, and it works. 2 columns on A5 works. But yes, the church magazine, we just have 1. We don't have any columns on it.
No, one column is okay on A5, but if you go bigger than that, realistically, on the whole, I mean,
as you say, it just becomes a big slab, doesn't it?
It becomes a big slab of text, and it's quite difficult to read because you'll find it's a long line for your eyes to scan. I mean, it's all right, to have occasional, maybe, for example, Pete does this Village magazine, and that's mostly in 2 columns. And then there will be a small article, relevant to one thing, and maybe that will be in a box and be, half a page, and that will not be in 2 columns. But that's, you learn these things. That's a bit of contrast, and it's only a half a page, and that's fine. If you did the whole magazine like that, your eyes would hurt after a few pages. So you do that also, occasionally for contrast to,
Yeah, and I think it just looks unprofessional if you just do big slabs of A4 text.
Oh yes, it's not very nice. So there you go. Again, if you're not sure, use a template.
Yeah. So one last thing, because we talked about just before we started the show was we put the church magazine online, and I use a piece of a web service called issue.com. That's ISSU. And they, as long as you keep it under a certain number of publications over time, it is free. And basically, you just upload a PDF, you tag it with a few names. It then gives you the opportunity of exporting. What is it? XML, is it?
Oh right,
It's markup for HTML basically, which you then paste into your church website or your website, whatever, and it creates a little graphic of the front page of your magazine, which you can then click on, and it takes you to Issue. And Issue enables you to read it like a magazine by clicking on the pages and turning the pages, etc. So worth a look, Issue. It's been very good. I mean, they keep adding extra features to the professional version, because obviously the professional version you have to pay for, and there's a lot more facilities for the paid for version. But just for the ability to be able to publish it onto the church website, it's really useful. So thank you, Issue.
Yeah, very much. And of course, for all our talk earlier on about, physically printing and folding and stitching and all that, obviously, for a lot of people, they're not actually ever going to have to get to that point. They're going to, produce their work, turn it into a PDF and distribute it
electronically.
And yes, I've got it here, ISSUU. Issue.
That's the one. Yeah,
that's the one. That's very interesting. Very interesting. We'll put a link to that, I think, in the show notes. And I think that's probably about it. I think what I'm going to do for this issue, I'm not going to put all of our notes into the show notes. I think I might attach them as a possible, for people to download if they're interested.
Fair enough.
And I guess that's about it. Time to wrap up the show. I will, of course, say here, don't forget, we still have 4 copies of Be-Light Amadine to give away. There's still time to get your name in the hat to win a license for that vector application. So email essentialapple@sudomail.com, and that's SUDO mail. And there we are. I think we will probably call that a show.
Yeah.
Pete, where can people find you?
Well, I occasionally use Twitter, but essentially I keep a low profile. But it's Hermboy or Suffolk Pete on Twitter.
Very good. And Nick?
First of all, I'd like to say thank you for doing this, Simon. I've had I've had this idea of talking about this for quite a while, so it's been nice to get around to it and have a chat. And it's been great having Pete on as well and having the different perspectives. I think we've all learned a little bit.
Yes,
good.
Definitely. It's been a really good show. Really enjoyed it.
But yes, you can find me occasionally on Twitter, and my contact name is Spligosh, SPLIGOSH, and I'm also on Bart Show occasionally over at Let's Talk Apple.
Excellent. I am, of course, on the Twitters as @Serenak, and that's SERENAK. The show is @Essential Apple. All our stuff is on essentialapple.com, and I think that's probably enough. So we'll call it a show. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Essential Apple podcast, and I'd like to say if you enjoy the show and would like to support us, feel free to go over to the website essentialapple.com, and you will find links to both Patreon and the Pinecast Tips Jar, where you can make a donation towards the costs of the show, or even if you're really keen, you could set up a recurring payment. And thank you very, very much to all the people who already do support us. We really do appreciate you very much indeed. This show is, of course, part of the My Mac Podcasting Network, where you can find a variety of other shows like the My Mac Podcast with Guy and Gaz, the G-Men, Tech Fan with Tim and David, the Nintendo Club podcast, the geekiest show ever, the Three Geeky Ladies, Bart Bouchots and his wonderful Let's Talk Apple, and possibly some more that I've forgotten. So why not go over to mymac.com, take a look at the available podcasts, and take a listen.
This is Mike's computer. I really think you need to listen to Geekiest Show Ever. Melissa, Elisa and Mike work really hard to make a good podcast that will last the test of time. They are smart, informative and concise. Who am I kidding? They show up and talk for an hour or so and I have to listen to their dribble. I beg you listen to the podcast so I feel like my life has meaning and I won't go into a kernel panic and end it all. Listen to the Geekiest Show Ever on the My Mac Podcasting Network.
This has been the Essential Apple Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show and we look forward to you joining us again another time. Until then, goodbye. I can hear you, Nick. Minchi quo Ruma. I heard you singing. I heard somebody singing there. Minchi quo.
That was me.
Ruma. You have to do the Russian kind of march when you do that, don't you? You have to have clenched fists with your arms swinging side to side, stomping boots.
in my living room, I've got a projector, and hopefully retiring soon. So I want to do some more exercise because I'm not exactly what you'd call a lean a lean fighting machine of any sort. So I do like walking, but when I can't get out walking, I have got one of these exercise machine things. But I hardly ever use it because I get bored very quickly.
Yeah.
So I thought what I'll do is I'll buy myself a decent stand and I'll put a TV on top of it, and then I can watch the TV while I'm exercising. So I thought I'll go out and buy. I don't want to spend more than 250 quid. So I'll go and have a look what's available. So I went over to this Tesco's Extra, and I've managed to pick up, for 250 quid on the nose, I've picked up a 4K 43-inch LG smart TV, which I couldn't believe for 250 quid.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
Crikey.
So that's quite remarkable.
And I think there are some exercise apps that, and you'll be able to plug your iPad into your TV, I think, and then project them onto that, which makes it look like you're walking or cycling in the forest or something.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
That's what I was going to suggest, because when my kids were little, about 3 years old, we had a little like a tricycle, right? It was like a tricycle, and they pedalled it, but it was linked up to, I can't remember what it was linked to. Might have been one of the VTech type consoles, VTech Leap or something. So they got on it, and the idea was that they pedalled it and steered it, and like went along these cartoon paths, and jumped over things and whatnot. But I've seen adult versions of that. So if you've got an exercise bicycle and you link these things up, you can project, a landscape basically, so that you're not just staring at the wall as you pedal along like a lunatic.
Yeah, so it looks like you're a really professional cyclist.
Gives you the impression, and you can have, can have mountain riding or going through the woods, or
Yeah, and I think you can do things with like virtual riders who come along with you, that sort of thing. Or you can become part of an online community where they come and join you for a bike ride.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah,
I hadn't thought of that at all. That's a good idea.
Yeah, that was the thing. Yeah, you put it up on your telly, and then as you cycle, it basically
moves forward.
It scrolls through the environment for you.
Yeah. I can't remember the name of this app. I'll look it up and I'll let you know in the Slack room.
Oh, thanks, Pete.